dar pra você. Eu quero é comer você. Eu quero é dar pra você. Ui. Pro que eu quiser. Sexo pelo preco e futebol. Puta presidente. Sim, digo sim pra quem diz não. E pra quem quiser ouvir, eu digo não. Não, digo não porque eles vêm pra devorar meu coração. Vem, onde quando você vê as hienas na TV, essa visão vem se arrastando pelo chão, gargalhando sobre nós, eu digo não. Sim, já faz tempo que eu pedi, já faz tempo que eu perdi a direção. Sim, para encontrar o meu lugar, para encontrar esse lugar, concreto ou não. Sim, mas é certo que eles vêm, e por isso eu digo não, mais uma vez. Sim, sei que podem devorar, podem se matar de rir, mas rir no fim jamais. Sim, digo sim pra quem diz não, e pra quem quiser ouvir, eu digo não. Não, digo não porque eles vêm pra devorar meu coração. Vem, onde quando você vê as hienas na TV, essa visão. Sim, sei que podem devorar, podem se matar de rir, mas rir no fim jamais.
I would like to. Oh, it's working good. Thank you. I would like to thank the invitation to be here today in this full presentation, open this release, and congratulate the authors for the work we are going to present today and share with us the knowledge. Um, I would like also to say that it was for me a privilege to be invited to write the preface of the book. Thank you, Renata. Thank you, Mário, for that. Um, it was an honor. Thank you. Um, the discussion around this position of women in science, in technology, in society, and digital games are always very pertinent and necessary today and tomorrow, and when it's an issue, it's necessary. Um, I say in the preface, the path toward gender equality in the technology is one that is still urgent today. Uh, so, this book, Technology, Feminism, Multi and Transdisciplinary Contemporary Views of Women in Technology, advance the empowerment of women in tech and elevates their voices in a male-dominated space. By sharing their work and their experience, women are rising the worth regardless of and in regard to their gender, reclaiming their places in technologies. This is a very important statement. All of these books are necessary. All of these work are crucial for our work and for our society today. So, thank you so much, and see you soon again. Thank you.
Okay, now it's up to me. You have some people here to accept in the room. Renata, you have some people here to accept in the room of Zoom. They are waiting. Probably you have the waiting room, but people is okay. Okay, I'm the coordinator of DG Media, the research unit, the one that has the logo there around University of Aveiro. Okay, so just very quickly, just saying this is an honor for us to have this book here today. Okay, as Professor Anna was saying, this is the third book of the collection. Okay, so it's very relevant for us. Um, the idea of the collection is really to put forward some of the works being done by the research unit, and so I'm really happy with that. Okay, I will not talk too much about the. I believe what we are hearing is the sound here in the people in the Zoom room. So you can mute it here. Okay. So, but I will not go to in deep discussion about it because we'll have the what's happening. We'll have then Lydia will be talking about the collection. So my main point is really to say that TG Media is happy with this, is really opening to accepting more books like this because this is relevant at the moment, not only at the moment, it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Okay. And so for the DG Media, of course, this is something that we have received I believe it was 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, uh, um, a request from the FCT about how do we approach gender and all these things in our research unit. We don't have a very strong discussion on that at our research unit. Maybe this is a good point to start discussing this. Okay, maybe learn with this, with what we have here today, and start with this book, because we always believe that we are doing the right thing, but believing that we are doing the right thing is not the same as really understanding and have the conscience of what is really happening around with people, okay? Because we have experienced a lot of the world through our bias, okay? And so we believe through our bias and our experience that we understand how the world works, how people feel in their own environments, and so we believe that we are doing the good things, but at some point when people start presenting you the reality in other perspectives, in other points of view, you start understanding, maybe I've done this not in the better manner in the past. Maybe I can change this and that, okay? And so I believe your book could help in making us in our research unit start discussing more this topic, okay? So this is what the only thing that I wanted to say, just to be open about that. This is not something that we have done because we intentionally thought about that. It's something that we keep discussing, but it's something that we should bring into the table and into the work with our colleagues. But to not make you hear me too much, I will now ask Lydia Oliveira, because she's the coordinator of our collection, and she can talk a little bit more about the book and the collection and the relevance of the book and the collection for the Digimedia. And I hope we can arrange this with the sound. I don't know what's happening. Okay, thank you, Lydia.
Bem, boa tarde a todos. Eu quero, no essencial, dar os parabéns à Renata e ao professor Mário Vairinhos por terem tido a energia para fazer este livro. Quando as coisas estão feitas, parece que elas sempre existiram, parece que é natural que elas estejam aqui. Na verdade, foram muitos meses de trabalho, com algumas coisas mais delicadas para superar, por exemplo, as questões dos direitos de autor. E uma das missões da coleção, ou um dos elementos da filosofia da coleção dos livros do Digimedia, é que tenham acesso aberto, e por isso qualquer um de vós, ou qualquer pessoa, alguns no mundo, pode aceder aos livros da coleção. Este é o terceiro livro. E no fundo gostaria que ele fosse inspirador para todos vós e para os colegas todos, quer internos ao Digimedia, quer com parcerias externas. Não tem que ser uma coleção caseira, pode ser uma coleção aberta ao mundo, e no fundo gostaria que este fosse um momento inspirador, mais do que tudo, e do ponto de vista procedimental não será difícil, ou com um e-mail para a Ângela, ou para o professor Nelson, ou para mim, dizer: tenho uma ideia, está aqui, digamos assim, um desafio que gostava de abraçar do ponto de vista de vir a gerar, que é um bocadinho como uma gestação, se calhar com mais de 9 meses, no caso deste livro, mas gostaríamos de começar a gerar um livro, e eu acho que devemos dialogar desde o momento do início da gestação, porque já nos tem chegado a proposta de livro que nós temos proposado ou que temos pedido alterações bastante estruturais, porque no fundo não nasceram consensualizados connosco. Já é uma coisa que está feita e que se tenta encaixar, e por vezes, digamos assim, não cabe nos critérios da coleção. Está bem? Parabéns uma vez mais, boa sorte, e que o livro se dissemine muito.
I forgot to congratulate Renata and Mário just for that. Thank you for your work, and now I will Sei lá.
Dois. Sorry about these technical issues. Just give us maybe 1 minute to check these technical issues.
Tens que entrar a admitir as pessoas.
Dois. Eu acho que não tenho que ver com o sítio onde estou. Já... Dois. Let's try it this way. Okay, let's move on. I try to be quick. Sorry for my English. I'm a little bit embarrassed of my English, but I will speak in English because we have audience outside the room that are English speakers. So I'll try to be brief. I'm one of the editors of the book. I would like to congratulate especially Renata. All this book is Renata. This book is her and it's hers. It was a big pleasure to work with her and to see all this process of reviewing. I want to thank you, the reviewers, and Katarina Lelish, who made this beautiful cover. But especially the authors. I think this work is very important. The research of the authors, not only for women, but not only, because we cannot forget that activism is about political dimension. In this political dimension, have the ability or give us tools to look into the power structures of our society. And that's really important because we live in nowadays different trends that we must be very aware of this and how power is structured. And when I speak about the structure of power, I'm not talking about only institutions, but concepts like artificial intelligence, technology as a whole. So this book is very important for our society because of that. That's really good that most of these issues were discussed in the book. One of the most dangerous ideas when we don't question power and their structure is that this other idea that technology and people are apart from each other. Because with that in mind, people usually say, okay, people are biased, but technology is not, and that's wrong. Activism must deconstruct this. It must bring all these subjects inside human activities, because technology is not neutral. So I congratulate all the authors of this book because of this political dimension about questioning the structures of power, and that not only important for women, but society in general. So thank you very much. I'm not going to speak more. I'm going to pass the word to Renata.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's an honor and immense joy to launch the book Technofeminism, Multi- and Transdisciplinary Contemporary Views on Women in Technology. A dream of mine envisioned 7 years ago that took shape thanks to an incredible teamwork. A desire to deliver to the University of Aveiro and my research center, DECA, Digimedia, which hosted my research on inclusion, empowerment, and education of women in technology from female communities in IT, a contribution to the advancement of research and legacy. First, I would like to thank the scientific coordinator of Digimedia and also the coordinator of UA Editora, Dr. Nelson Zagallo, for the opportunity to host this book as a publication in the Digimedia collection and for supporting this project. I also thank Professor Ana Veloso, Director of the Department of Communication and Art, for also having embraced this event and book not only institutionally, but as the author of a beautiful preface to our book, in which she reports part of her extensive experience as a woman in technology. I would like to thank the director of ICDP and New Media PhD courses, full professor at DECA, Oscar Mealha, for his support and enthusiasm for the event and book project. I would like to thank DECA's professor associated with aggregation, Lidio Oliveira, also editor of the Digimedia collection, for hosting this publication of this book. I also thank Angela Espinha, editorial manager of the Digimedia collection and science and technology manager at Digimedia, for her support in the book and event. I would like to thank Susana Dias, DECA's communication technician, for having embraced this challenge with enthusiasm, competence, and joy. I want to thank all the authors present at this event and this book. It was a privilege to exchange knowledge, an honor to sign this book with you, and still count on your illustrious presence here. Thank you for trusting me and my work. We live an example of real sisterhood. Thanks to DECA professor Catarina Lelis for designing this astonishing cover and to her students. The scientific committee formed by the reviewers Ellen Nash, Tomás Vieira Silva, Bruno Valente Pimentel, Catarina Lelis, Vânia Baldi, Mônica Aresta, Patrícia Oliveira, Paula Tavares. This event will be divided into two parts. A presentation by Emeritus Professor of Sociology at the London School of Economics and Political Science, Dr. Judy Walkman, followed by a roundtable in which each author will be able to present her work related to the theme addressed in the book for 5 minutes. Then, we will open a debate in which the public can participate with questions. To optimize our time, I will introduce Dr. Judy Walkman, and before the roundtable is composed, I will introduce each author and work featured in Technofeminism. My name is Renata Frade. I'm a PhD researcher at DECA Digimedia. I'm also a researcher on the impacts of artificial intelligence on society at the Institute of Advanced Studies at the University of São Paulo, and editor and content producer for Pop Junctions, Dr. Harry Jenkins, Provost Professor of Communication, Journalism, Cinematic Arts, and Education at the University of Southern California, who was a former director at the MIT lab, where I was his transmedia student. I've been a technology entrepreneur for almost 10 years, where I developed projects such as a book application with a game. I've been also a leader and manager of a female IT community for 3 years, Girls in Tech Brazil 2. Despite my academic career focused on social sciences and communication science, I have always dedicated myself to the study of technology, having my first contact with internet in 1995 in Brazil and taking my first programming course, HTML, in 1999. I maintained an intense career in multinational companies and agencies developing communication digital platforms, projects, and also my academic career. Since the age of 18, I have been the victim of prejudice at work because I am a woman, because I urged to innovate, because I led initiatives, and also for this reason, I have developed projects that leave legacies, such as the book Technofeminism and also O Livro Delas, by Editora Roca in Brazil, part of Lit Girls PR multi-platform project. This book on technofeminism emerged from a concern in 2016, amplified after years by my doctoral research, to perceive a large gap not only in publishing terms, but also in terms of content in debates about feminism or about women in technology, human rights, social justice, diversity, and inclusion, which approached technological feminism from a perspective not only of history, but also of current debates, in addition to statistics produced by private and governmental institutes or by companies about the lack of women information technology. There's a lack of theory applied to the practice of rigorous investigation behind what we often see in the press and in society to overcome problems and limitations, especially in organization analysis and interaction in communities. Due to my broad hybrid professional and academic profile, I'm sure that this book is of immense relevance for bringing, in a very broad and consistent way, great national and international experts on feminist studies in technology in diverse areas such as artificial intelligence, education, gender, arts, games, transgender people, social justice, and cultural diversity, design, human computation interaction, and technoscience. Artificial intelligence is a ubiquitous theme in events and publications, but there are few that address technological feminism so urgent and necessary in their agendas. In this book, we have an important work, which we will talk about later, by the researcher Dr. Dora Kaufman on gender discrimination in artificial intelligence models, origins and mitigation paths. The book Technofeminism, will be released in an online version totally free in English. It will be able to be consulted firsthand in tablets after the roundtable in a cocktail for celebration and networking. It will be available on the Digimedia website and on RIA, the institutional repository of the University of Aveiro. For now, let's go to the presentation of Dr. Judy Walkman. Any institution in the world would be honored and privileged to have an exhibition by an intellectual of immense relevance as the Emeritus Professor of Sociology at the London School of Economics. In addition to developing a reference work in the world of sociology at work, the impact of technology on personal and professional life, today more focused on artificial intelligence, Dr. Judy Walkman made history as one of the leading theorists on the planet on technological feminism. The concept of technofeminism is hers, findable in any research on gender and feminism associated with technology. Dr. Judy Walkman is a fellow at the Alan Turing Institute, where she leads the Women in Data Science and Artificial Intelligence Research Project. She has been a visiting professor at the Oxford Internet Institute. Professor Walkman's scholarly interests encompass the sociology of work and employment, science and technology studies, gender theory, and organization analysis. Her work has been translated into Chinese, French, German, Greek, Italian, Korean, Japanese, Portuguese, Spanish, and Russian. Professor Walkman is a fellow of the British Academy. In 2018, she received the Oxford Internet Institute's Lifetime Achievement Award in recognition of her contributions to the field of the social study of science and technology. Dr. Judy Walkman, once again, thank you. I am immensely grateful for the opportunity to have you in this book and to count on you in this presentation. An immense honor and privilege. Please feel free to get started. I'm going to help you sharing your presentation. Thank you very much to all.
You're not hearing me.
Yes. Now, great.
Can you hear me now? Yes,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Okay, I was just saying that I'm completely delighted to be here. I'm delighted that you produced the book, and congratulations on the book. It looks absolutely fantastic and is really, really needed. I mean, will you take through the slides then? I'll just say next. Will I? Is that the easiest thing, Renata? Yeah. Okay, yes, let's start with next. That's completely fine. Okay.
Sorry for that. Please, yes. Sorry.
Don't worry. That's
I will pause the
okay, fantastic. Okay, all right. I'll try and do what I can from here, and I've got a bit of a cold, so forgive me. I'm really delighted to be here. I'm not going to speak for very long. I've just got a few slides, which is a bit of background to what I've been doing and what I've been thinking about. And I'd love to participate in the conversation with everybody when we get going. I guess I should just start by saying that I've been thinking about science, technology, and gender for decades, as you said, for a very long time. And during that time, I have to say a lot has changed in terms of technology. The technology that I was thinking about when I started work on this was very different to what we have now. And now there's a lot of discussion, as you said, about the fourth industrial revolution, about artificial intelligence, big data, robots, the Internet of Things, all of these new technologies. And what really, is that fine? Yes? Yes, we can go to the next one if you like. And what's really sort of struck me is how much there's a discussion still about whether technologies are going to kind of transform life. You know, we have these scenarios that are utopian and dystopian. And actually, I just last week, the week before, was in Stanford for a week because I'm on a committee that looks at the future of artificial intelligence called AI 100. And I can't tell you how much excitement there was about generative AI and chat GPT, and all of the discussion was so parallel to the old discussions that we've always had about whether this technology was going to be kind of destructive and bad, or whether it was going to bring huge benefits to mankind, huge benefits to women and men. It was the same very much polarized kind of conversation that everyone was having in Silicon Valley about these things. And in this context, what I'm currently doing is that I'm working at the Alan Turing Institute in London, which is the British Institute thinking about data science and AI. And we have a small project, because feminist projects are always small, but we at least have a project. It's a small project on women in data science and artificial intelligence. And so what we've tried to do in the project, we started off really asking the question about, is there still a problem about women and technology? Is there still an underrepresentation of women in STEM subjects in the forefront of technologies? And we wrote this report called Where Are the Missing Women? Because what we found was that there were still missing women. And if you could just go to the next slide, I've just put up a couple of data points. One is, if you look at the numbers of women in AI in companies like Facebook and Google, I don't know if the slides are very small there, I can't see your screen. But as you can see, there's a very high, overrepresentation of men, if you like, in those companies. And the slide on the right, which I'm sorry is so small, is actually looking at conferences around the world, a division between men and women who present conference papers at the leading conferences on artificial intelligence and machine learning all around the world. And what you see in there is that literally on average, about 88% of all of the papers that are given at the leading research conferences around the world on machine learning are given by men. So there's still an enormous problem in terms of the latest kind of technology and women's lack of participation in it. And then if you look at the next slide, we're living in a world, and we're not surprised by this, we all know this, where, you know, it's presented to us as completely unrelated, that a lot of the kind of apps and the technology that are being generated have got race bias, have got gender bias, that all of these problems are being replicated. And these are all examples, I'm sure that you know, they're all the famous examples of when Amazon started using an automated recruiting system. It sent, it framed them in such a way that the ideal candidate were men. There have been examples of advertisements for jobs in science and engineering going much more to men than women. There's been a lot of work, as you know, done on facial recognition technology and the way it's got race bias and gender bias within it. And actually there was a recent, just if you look at the bottom right-hand corner, there was a recent study of UK passport photo checkers showing that it was a bias against dark-skinned women. So what we're finding is that a lot of the technologies that are being designed with the latest technologies still seem to have race and gender bias within them. And I guess what I've been trying to do in my whole career is to make a connection between these things, to make a connection between the underrepresentation of sort of women and other minority groups in the making of technology and the way in which this actually shapes the kind of technology that we get. And next slide. These old books of mine were trying to address this issue a very long time ago. And actually the first one, Feminism Confronts Technology, was literally still written when we were in what was called the microelectronic revolution, right? So a whole earlier revolution, a whole different set of technologies. But I was trying to raise these questions about, where are the women? Is it affecting the technology? And then I wrote the book Technofeminism a decade later, because by then there was a feminist literature about these things. There wasn't really a feminist literature when I wrote my first book, but by the second book, there was a growing feminist literature. And I was interested in just having a look at how that had changed historically. So if you just go to the next slide, and this is, can you go to the next slide? This is terribly schematic, so forgive me. And the history of the literature is much, much more nuanced and subtle than this. But I just wanted to sort of get across some of the ideas, if you like. That I think when feminists started being interested in science and technology, and I'm really talking about in the kind of mid-70s, really, we were at that point very interested in studying why very few girls studied maths, why there were so few women physicists. We were looking at all kinds of medical technologies, all kinds of technologies. And I think at that point, we still thought about technologies as neutral, and that the problem really was, we used to call it a use-abuse model, right? That, good people would use technology for good things and evil people would use technology for bad things, but there wasn't actually a problem with technology. And it seems to me that the big move feminism made, and a new discipline that wasn't even existing then, which is now known as STS, the Social Studies of Science and Technology, was to start thinking about how gender is inscribed or embedded in technology itself. And I would argue that by the 1980s, actually, both radical feminists and socialist feminists were really starting to think about that. If you think about, there were a lot of fantastic feminist philosophers like Sandra Harding, writing books actually about the history of science, thinking about science as a reflection of culture, as being historical, as being affected and changing depending on the social context. And we were really thinking about, I mean, when I set off to write my book, actually, I was trying to write a book on technology that was similar to Sandra Harding's book about science. You know, she'd written a book about the science question in feminism, and I wanted to look at the technology question, really. When I look back at those old books of mine, I have to say that people have criticized the early book, Feminism Confronts Technology, for being rather pessimistic and very much kind of stressing how the microelectronic revolution would reproduce gender relations, if you like. And I sort of write about in Technofeminism how there's really a shift from the kind of early work in the 80s to the 1990s, where you get, cyborg feminism or cyber feminism. It's been called a lot of different things. But when you get a complete sort of flip, if you like, and that there's a lot of optimism about digital technologies liberating women. And, I'm thinking of people like Sherry Turkle and lots of books that were written around that time that were very much thinking, well, if we were going to live a lot of our lives on the internet, then maybe the fact that we were men and women wouldn't so much affect our career prospects, the kind of technology we did, things like that. And I think since that time, of course, we've now seen that this is much more complicated than that, and we could sort of talk about that. But I think the main, if I can talk about sort of one theme that came out of all of this work in the sociology of science, the sociology of technology, and what's now known as feminist technoscience, if you like, was this idea that technology and gender are mutually shaped, that they're created together, that they're interrelated, that they affect each other. Some people use metaphors like inscription, or encoded, that gender relations are encoded or encrypted in technology, and also that really how we construct gender and gender identity has got a relationship to technology. And, I've been involved, but lots of other people, in writing about how actually there's been a very, very long connection historically between the idea that kind of being competent and capable with technology is identified as somehow a masculine characteristic, and that women are somehow seen as less competent with technology. And, if you just think about the old jokes about women couldn't drive cars or, any of these things, right, that there's been this long-standing idea that I really think is still has a lot of kind of cultural force, these stereotypes, and you see them very much actually. And I've written about this kind of more recently in my work on Silicon Valley, that you see this in the kind of bro culture, as it's called in Silicon Valley, that, there's this ethos within the kind of big tech, high tech companies in Silicon Valley, that to be a good worker, you just work 24/7, that you live in the workplace, that it's a very kind of male workplace, a male culture. It's the opposite of a good work-life balance. And it kind of carries these notions of kind of, somehow being a genius, that you have to be brilliant to be one of these computer scientists, and you get paid a lot of money. And somehow this is produced very much as a kind of masculine culture, just like Sherry Turkle wrote about in the 80s, actually, in terms of hacker culture, that old notion of hackers, eating pizza at MIT in the middle of the night's been kind of transposed onto these new technologies. Now, what makes me very optimistic, and if you can just go to the next slide, if you could, is that the huge change since I started working on this, and your book is very much part of this, is that there's now an enormous literature about these things. There's loads of fantastic feminists actually in the forefront of these critiques. When I started, it was mainly men writing about technology as well. I mean, now if you look at the best critical work that's going on about the latest technology, women are at the forefront of a lot of these organizations. And I'm thinking, if you look at the left of, the algorithmic Justice League, there's a fantastic place in New York called Data and Society, the AI Now Institute, really a lot of the best critical voices now about the latest technology are being kind of heralded by women. And that's just a kind of enormous change from when I started. There's also now a wonderful, amazing kind of literature. And if I can just mention sort of two things, I mean, there's this book called Data Feminism that lots and lots of people are using by a couple of American colleagues, where they're very much focusing on what's a relatively kind of new issue, which is that all of these latest technologies rely on big data, on huge data sources. And they're very much arguing that it's very important to examine the data that goes into these machine learning models, and that if you put, as they say, lousy data in, you get lousy outcomes at the other side. And it's a fantastic book talking about the ways in which the data is produced, the fact that the data carries with it, the gender and race relations of the societies in which they've been made. They also talk about the fact that there are a lot of very poorly paid workers in third world countries who have to clean this data, who are never discussed. So they talk in very good ways, actually, about the whole set of relations that are necessary to produce these new, algorithms that everybody is so excited about. And on the right-hand side, I've just got a couple of papers to remind you that there are now whole conferences. I don't know how much any of you here have been involved with them, but there's whole conferences now of technical people devoted to trying to figure out how to make algorithms more just and more fair. And I think that's interesting. I mean, I'm personally of the view, and maybe we could discuss this, that actually this is not a technical problem, that a lot of the technical people who work in computer science think that you can solve the problem of algorithmic bias, but with technology, with technical solutions. I'm not sure that you can do that, but I think it's very heartening that there's so much work going on and very big conferences now of people who are working in the field. So it's not like social scientists like myself outside, but people in the field of computer science and artificial intelligence who themselves are taking on these issues about the fact that, technology needs to be just, it needs to support human rights, that there are all sorts of privacy issues, ownership issues, and they're trying to think through how to do these things in a better way. So maybe I can just sort of conclude, and I hope I'll get a chance to come back and chat with people about their talk. So really, what I kind of conclude my talk saying, but, I've concluded my talk saying this for too long for you to remember, too many decades for you to remember, is really that I think what's kind of crucial about technofeminism, if you like, is that we're always trying to say that feminist technoscience is not only an equal opportunity issue, but it's also fundamentally about how the world we live in is designed and for whom. That while it is absolutely a matter of social justice, that women and other marginalised groups should have equal access to interesting, well-paid jobs. But I have to say, every report I read about the future of work and the effects of these technologies on work says that where the jobs are going to expand is in, data science and artificial intelligence and computer science. These are going to be the jobs of the future. And these are precisely the jobs that are still very male dominated. But I also say that I think that there's a direct link between the underrepresentation, if you like, the lack of diversity, let me put it that way, the lack of diversity in data science and artificial intelligence, and the fact that what you find is that the technologies that are produced have got all sorts of flaws in them. And it seems to me that until we have a genuinely diverse workforce, we're not going to be able to include the wide range of perspectives and experiences that we really need to ensure that the future technologies are more inclusive and better technologies, quite frankly, more innovative, better technologies to serve everyone's needs. So perhaps I'll just leave it there for now, and hopefully I'll have a chance to come back. Thank you.
Once again, I want to thank Dr. Judy Walkman for making this amazing presentation. Really amazing. Really amazing. Before starting the roundtable, I would like to pay a simple tribute to the author, Bia Michele Miranda, who recently passed away. She was a computer science PhD researcher at the Pontifícia Universidade Católica do Rio de Janeiro, do Rio Grande do Sul, in Brazil, focusing on management on ethnic, racial diversity in software engineering. I don't believe in coincidences. This book is being released on the same day as the International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia, date created to commemorate the 1990 decision of the World Health Organization to remove homosexuality from the list of mental disorders, one of the main social causes of our author. In Spaces in this Deconstruction, an experience report on transgender employability in the area of computing technology, Dr. Bia Michele Miranda shows an experience report on transgender employability in the area of computing technology based on the difficulties and potentialities found for the inclusion of transgender people in the labor market in technology, and she suggests reflections based on the identified indicators. Bia Michele Miranda was one of the main researchers and activists on transgender women technology and the LGBTQI+ cause in Brazil. A brave, sweet, intense person who I had the opportunity to work with roundtable I facilitated for the She's Tech event in which she spoke. She was very happy with this book, and I was very sad that she passed away and that she couldn't see how beautiful her work turned out. Therefore, to give voice to our author, let's watch an excerpt of her speech at the event available only in Portuguese.
Né? É até interessante porque eu sempre gosto de falar muito a partir da minha ancestralidade, né? De onde eu vim. Né? Eu venho de Santa Isabel do Pará, inclusive eu estou aqui agora, né? Eu tenho como mãe, né, uma mulher negra, trabalhadora do do município, um pai ribeirinho, que sempre semi-analfabeto, que sempre trabalhou como pedreiro, carpinteiro, né? E essa base é o que me constitui, né? É o que me leva à frente para estudar, para ir atrás da minha jornada, mas também para questionar, porque ter a mãe que eu tenho, né, com o histórico que ela tem de superação, de vida, de correr atrás, de coragem, ter meu pai também, né, com seu histórico, me colocou num lugar onde era um lugar que eu não poderia não questionar, né? Então, esse questionamento, ele vem, né, desde qual é o nosso lugar para estar, qual é o lugar da mulher isabelense para estar. Eu brinco muito dizendo que aqui na minha cidade a gente via as meninas fazendo o mesmo percurso, que era fazer o ensino médio, ter um marido, um namorado, casar, ter filhos e ficar aqui na cidade. E eu via que a minha mãe, ela lutava para a gente não fazer esse percurso, né? Ter uma vivência maior. E de onde vem isso, né? Vem desse lugar da mulher negra, né? Vem desse lugar de inconformidade com aquilo que nos impõe. Porque é muito fácil a gente abraçar aquilo que nos impõe, seja a sociedade, seja a cultura, né? E ousar ir contra ela é o nosso grande desafio. E aí, respondendo até um pouco já antecipadamente a tua pergunta, né, sobre desafios, eu vejo que esse era um desafio meu lá atrás e ainda é um desafio meu para todas nós no presente, né? Ter coragem para romper aquilo que a sociedade nos impõe, né? Eu fui, por exemplo, para a universidade, primeiro fui para a universidade de matemática, depois para a universidade de sistemas de informação, e a minha realidade ali era de 5 meninas dentro de um curso de 50 alunos, né? Onde 3 não, 2 apenas conseguiram se formar, né? Nesse contingente, né? E aí, se a gente for fazer uma análise maior sobre quem são essas mulheres, que aí, para mim, esse é o ponto da discussão quando eu falo hoje sobre mulheres na tecnologia, eu não consigo mais não falar, não perguntar quem são as mulheres que a gente está falando, porque, de fato, a gente ainda é minoria dentro dos grupos, dentro dos cursos de computação, no mercado de trabalho, ainda que a gente esteja vendo alguns avanços, mas, sobretudo, as mulheres negras, sobretudo as mulheres transexuais, transgêneras, né? Que essas, inclusive, não conseguem nem sequer chegar na universidade, na maioria das vezes, né? Então, quando a gente vai falar sobre mulher, quando eu vou falar sobre mulheres na tecnologia, eu gosto sempre de começar fazendo essa pergunta, né? De que mulheres estamos falando, né? E aí, pensando nisso, né? Tipo, dentro dessa minha trajetória, fiz o meu curso, né? Com os desafios de ser uma mulher, negra. No caso, como a minha faculdade era na capital, ainda tinha que ter escutar coisas relacionadas a de onde eu venho, que é do interior do Pará, né? E isso só foi ampliando quando eu fui para São Paulo, né? Para fazer o mestrado. Tive a sorte de encontrar ali também em São Paulo uma empresa que me deu a oportunidade de falar mais sobre essas coisas, que foi a TOTO, onde eu trabalhei por quase 3 anos. E em seguida eu fui fazer o doutorado em Porto Alegre para aprofundar essas questões, né? Falando sobre diversidade étnico-racial dentro da engenharia de software. Então, para mim, os nossos principais desafios ainda agora é mostrar para as pessoas que essa discussão é válida, que essa discussão ela não é uma discussão para ser feita nas sociais, nas ciências sociais, ela é uma discussão que tem que ser feita aqui, nos nossos espaços como tecnologistas, nos congressos de computação que vai ser debatido Big Data, vai ser debatido inteligência artificial, a gente também tem que levar essa discussão, porque ela ainda é colocada como uma coisa à parte, né? E a gente vê tem muitas políticas, muitas coisas falando sobre a questão das mulheres na tecnologia, agora está começando a se falar também sobre as pessoas negras na tecnologia, mas ainda é necessário, ainda temos um longo caminho a se vencer, e o caminho do preconceito para mim, é o que é o mais que está mais dado para a gente superar, que a gente não vai superar sozinhas, né?
Manuel, Miranda and family, eu abraço você. Let's go to the round table in which the authors of the book will participate. Each one will have 5 minutes to address themes presented in the book and also in their academic and professional experience. Afterwards, we will open for the public to answer questions. Next, we will celebrate with a networking session and book at a cocktail party next door. Two authors couldn't attend the event, Ana Viseu and Science Unfortunately. I would like to call the author Ana Silveira Moura. She's the author of the work Allegro ma non troppo, How Educational Traps Might Be Predicted. Dr. Ana Silveira Moura explores how models and data can be used to assess the evolution of women in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM, and it presents today strategies to address the situation that had already been predicted and could have accelerated the process towards a more inclusive educational environment. These exploratory aspects also address recent trends in gender studies such as alternative history and a transversal approach to a complex social and educational puzzle. She is a researcher at the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry of the University of Porto. Passionate about science, education, arts, and literature, Ana Moura has kept her research publication track in several academic areas, while being a published author of speculative fiction, namely in the fields of alternate history and science fiction. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to the University of Aveiro for this event, for the Department of Media and Professor Ana Veloso, for Professors Nelson Zangalo and Lydia for this collection and these books, for these amazing editors, Renata, Frade, and Professor Mário Vairinhos, and a special thanks to Renata, who it's a pleasure to work with her, and thank you for this initiative. So, education is power, and power is connected to perception, namely social value perception. And it's quite interesting that for the at least last 100 years, education is considered a staple, and yet you still have controversy regarding education of half of the humanity. And this half of humanity, women, face not only controversy in many countries regarding how they attend education at all levels, but in particular, when you go to the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, you have an even more problematic scenario. So it has been said here before, and it's a fact, and I will speak in numbers in a little while. You have a ratio of male-female rates in STEM that it's very strange from even the male-female educational ratio. So even if education is allowed to have a space, when you pass from STEM education to STEM career paths, you drop even more that kind of ratio. And this is usually a global scenario, though there are obviously always exceptions. And in recent years, there have been new proposals to models, predictive models in social and educational scenarios that resource to data retrieving from creative and literary works, such as science fiction book, for example. And these new models depart from the fact that imagination is becoming more and more accepted as a cognitive neurocapacity that presents advantages in the way that we develop scenarios, hypothetical scenarios, and provide us with a survival responses. So these models depart from several postulates to address works
that come from imagination, such as creative and literary outputs, and extract data from them, particularly speculative works, like dystopian works. And from there, they develop and use that data in predictive models in new fashions. So you have 3 phases in this kind of approach. You select a theme. In our particular, we chose the STEM career paths and educational scenarios for women in the present moment. And then you scrutinize the chosen works. You extract the data from them in the form of descriptors. Usually you have the determinants that you can also extract from the works. Determinants can be social factors, can be familial, etc. And the descriptors usually focus in the individual choices, usually 2, and the social or institutional outcomes of those choices. So with that, you can use a tool that was developed and is called Reductio ad Dystopia, where you construct a matrix of 2 entries for 2 individual options, 2 social or institutional outcomes, and you have, with the data extracted from the literary and speculative works, and you have a reality matrix extracted from data of the real world. And you juxtapose those 2 matrices. The furthest away that the reality matrix will be from the dystopian means that we are far off from that scenario. Obviously, the other conclusion is if you are very close to the dystopian matrix, then you are unfortunately too close to that type of reality. And in this work that we focus the aspects of STEM, career, and education regarding women, we look at reality, and we have already lost in the pages, so I'll go on without looking at the pages. We have from recent reports that we have in career path STEMs, approximately 29% of researchers are women, and that number, who is already rather impaired, drops when you go to the percentage of women in the boards of STEM-related industry, which is a number around 19%. And when you look for CEOs in STEM-related industry, that number even drops more to around 3%. So to lead is always a very lonely path. To be a woman and lead in STEM career, it's even lonelier than usually. And this is a reality from which we extracted the descriptors. So you can have basically 2 options. You can choose to go a path in STEM that does not go for the leading roles, and you will strive rather happily, normatively, in non-leading roles. Or you can take a leap to fight for reaching the CEO position, the leading role, and we will have as an outcome solitude, which is clearly a mental health impact factor in the long run. And when it comes to the choice of our dystopian, we focus in a case study of a classic, so that it could be relatable. We chose Brave New World, which is a work of science fiction that most people know. And in that world, everyone is happy. Everyone is happy because no one needs to choose its own destiny. It's imposed even before one is born. And then you are conditioned to like whatever it is, a destiny and profession that people chose for you. And no instinct is repressed. And in the eventuality of you being sad or depressed, you have infinite supply of drugs, a special drug called Soma, that will make you happy. And to avoid the danger of disrupted thinking, in that dystopian world, history does not exist, or it's not taught, which leads in practical terms to the same thing. And so what happened, what is the role of women and STEM in that world. You have women in STEM-related careers in Brave New World. In Brave New World, there are only that society has a caste system, and the alphas and the betas were able to retain intellectual capacities and leadership qualities. And you have beta women serving especially as technicians in laboratories, and they are complemented for their work. So you have space for women in that dystopian, in STEM-related careers, but not above a certain level. They do not go for the leading position. In the eventuality of they going, it could happen what happened to other alpha characters of the novel, which is considered a disruption against the social system, and they will become social outcasts and go to exile. So solitude would end up by being the consequences of choosing to fight for a leading role. And even without showing the metrics, it looks like by the description that the dystopia and the reality are very close. Now, the good news is a few years ago, in some countries, they will even be more closer than they are now. So in a way, in some countries, you are going far apart regarding the dystopian scenario. Not all. But a red flag that comes from this study is the aspect of the mental health issue that comes from a solitude and lonely path if you want to achieve a certain level in STEM career-related paths. So, given here and looking at history, and not to extend my time much more, I also cross this type of approach of this model with alternative history methodologies. And there was a very interesting work in the recent years regarding this, where the authors explored three key element moments in history: the Industrial Revolution, the Second World War, and the 80s, where if the feminism had embraced the stories of people like Ada Lovelace, who was the first software, in a way, developer, or the role that women had while men were in the battlefields, they had to another battle to stand by and for in the tech positions. And even in the 80s, when the contributions that women made for development, for example, of ARPANET were not embraced, and therefore they did not become part of the movement, they did not become part of our shared historical memory, and they did not become part of pop culture, that made that the gap between the interest that women could have for STEM and STEM-related careers become even more deepened. And so it comes in a way always to history. Like in the Brave New World, if it's not taught, if it's not approached, it's like it doesn't exist. They may have been few, but that is no reason to be forgotten. Thank you.
Congratulations and thank you, Ana. Now I have the joy of inviting Luciana Lima to the stage. She and the researcher Patricia Gouveia share the work Convergent Feminism, Gaming, Digital Transition and Equity. Both suggest that gender stereotypes related to gaming culture condition women's participation in the sector and legitimize digital games as mere entertainment for women and, on the other hand, a serious toy that influences career choices for men. Based on the results and from the perspective of speculative convergent feminism, they reflect on the relationship between digital games and technological and artistic skills in the emerging context of the digital transition. Luciana Lima holds a PhD in psychology from the University of Porto. She is a researcher at the Interactive Technologies Institute. Her academic background includes arts, education, sciences, and psychology. She has more than 10 years of teaching experience in Brazilian universities. In 2023, she published a book entitled Thinking Gender Through Digital Games, where she presents the results of the research in the scope of her postdoctoral studies in multimedia art at the Faculty of Fine Arts of the University of Lisbon. Luciana Lima is the co-creator of the Game Arts and Gender Equity project, which aims to map the evolution of female participation and integration in the Portuguese digital games industry. Thank you very much. Luciana, would you please join us? Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. First, I would like to thank the invitation made by Renata Frade and Mário Vairinhos, and tell you that it's a great pleasure to share with you today some results of the GATE project. Second, I would like to apologize my accent. I'm not a native English speaker, so bear with me. Okay. So I said before, let's talk about the Game Art and Gender Equity project. This is an academic project in progress. Patricia Gouveia and I are the co-creators this project. So we have some results, interesting results. The research units and institutions involved are Faculty of Fine Arts of the University of Lisbon, where my colleague Patricia Gouveia is now. Our research center, Interactive Technologies Institute, a center for the interdisciplinary field of human-computer interaction, and eGames Lab. This is a consortium received fund of 31 million euros, which aims at establishing Portugal as an internationally competitive center for new generation of digital games, which tackle societal challenges such as gender balance. Oh. Okay. So, what is the GAZE project? It is academic research proposal based on art and participatory design. It was created, as I said, by researchers, Patricia Gouveia and me, and others researchers. Our main questions are, how are women being included and represented in the digital game sector in Portugal? Second, how are the social dynamics of gender produced in the Portuguese digital games industry? I want to identify the evolution of female participation in the Portuguese gaming sector and to promote diversity in the Portuguese gaming industry. Who are we? We are 9 researchers of the different backgrounds and areas of knowledge: artist, philosopher, psychologist, and designers. So GAZE is a research project. It is a one overview of what we've done and what we want to do, because we began in 2019, and in this year we want to develop in other results and interviews, focus group with students. We are analyzing all the Portuguese magazines and newspaper from the 80s and 90s to identify how women were integrated into the digital games industry based on media discourse. This is an animation made by Inês Costa that participated in the GATE project. Okay. Where are the women in the industry, game industry? It's the mainly question for us. For example, only 15% of the students enrolled in digital games course in Portugal are women. It's because of women's lack of interest in this professional career? No, certainly not. In our chapter, we will address these questions. We believe that digital transition based on promoting gender equality involves identifying the factors that attract and distance women from technological fields. We have analyzed this problem from the viewpoint of the digital games industry. Yeah, it's an interesting report of the Sociedade Portuguesa de Ciência dos Videojogos that highlights between 66% and 99% of the total works are male. It's really problematic, and we really need to change this situation. Other problem is the consistent representation of games as male in use, market, and other media present for men as simple point of identification where they can see themselves, take on the identity of a game and a game developer. The same representational trend can exclude women by making their connection to that identify harder to envision. And to conclude my talk, for inclusion to exist more than believing that it exists, it's necessary and fundamental to investigate the specific context in which people are sent to the margins. Can I put a short film? Yes, in Portuguese, sorry.
Os gestores das empresas são maioritariamente homens e, portanto, condicionam a produção. Mesmo em equipas maioritariamente femininas, o pedido é da criação de um personagem e quando vem a história ou quando vem o pedido já vem com um personagem masculino. Portanto, acho que tem a ver com a mesma lógica do quem manda neste país são homens velhos e brancos e, portanto, os personagens vão ser homens velhos e brancos.
Now, I leave you with Patricia Gouveia, that is in Zoom. Hi, Patricia. Okay.
Thank you, Luciana.
Thank you, Renata.
Thank you.
Nós não ouvimos nada do que se está a passar aí, há imenso tempo. O vosso microfone, eu não sei se o meu microfone agora deve estar a funcionar. Mas daí não.
It was muted.
Yes. Okay, so now we are running.
She needs to appear here. Patricia. I need to introduce you before. Just a
Okay.
little bit. Let me introduce Patricia. Patricia Gouveia is an artist, designer, scholar, and curator with more than 20 years of research experience in arts design, gaming interaction. Her research focuses on games, playful media, interactive fiction, digital arts as places of convergence. She is an associate professor at the University of Lisbon Fine Arts Faculty and an integrated researcher at the Instituto Superior Técnico in Lisbon. She was an associate professor in the Department of Interactive Media at Norway University College in Norway, invited assistant professor at the Faculty Social and Human Sciences at Nova University, and assistant professor at Universidade Lusófona de Humanidades e Tecnologias in Lisbon. So, please, Patricia, thank you very much.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. And I'll be very quick because I know that the event is a little bit out of time now, and I could not follow my colleague Luciana, but again, I'm here to introduce our project with our GAJ, Gender, Heart and Game Equity project that we started in 2019. And for our side now, we have a new project called about convergent feminism, which will take the fourth automation revolution and speak how also about the sixth extinction. So we will connect biology with technology in an artistical perspective, where we will engage students, mainly art students, but also from our faculty of engineering, in speculative visions, future visions for there to create possibilities for future development. So that's what we will do in the next years. And I was also curating an exhibition with 5 exhibitions, one in Lisbon for Math Museum, the Museum of Art, Architectural and Technology in Lisbon, and also in 4 major cities in Brazil: São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, Belo Horizonte, and Brasilia. And it was called the Play Mode exhibition. You can check it online. And at that exhibition, we used several media. We had video, we have sculptures. Can you hear me well? Yes, okay. So we had all media connected to speak about this ludic stage or moment where we have also we can have both perspectives, or to become cynical, or to try to change cynics using chemical ideas to make subversions around technology, to engage students in again a speculative future. So that's what I had to tell you, and our chapter is mainly about initiatives that we are planning ahead. And we have another chapter from last year where we developed mainly strategies for higher education and for students to develop together or partnerships with other schools and research departments for our students here in Lisbon. I'm at my faculty these days, so sorry I had to jump into places. So because I'm into 2 classes in between, so I'm here so you know where to find me, and it was a pleasure to be here today. Thank you very much.
Ana Viseu appeared. I need to admit her. She was there. Well, let's go. Other author. She was waiting. Now I want to call out the author of Digital Self-Presence Lab, Embodying New Technologies for the Restoration of Presence, Dr. Carolina Berger. In this chapter, she exposes the development of Digital Self-Presence Lab that investigates ways of restoring presence in works that merge the poetics of new media arts and extended reality into experiences of technology embodiment. It questions how immersive experiences, live and in real time, generate new modes of presence for the performer and the audience, creating conditions for aesthetic manifestations of subjectivity and otherness from body expression. Dr. Carolina Berger is a postdoctoral fellow at the Department of Performing Arts at the School of Communication and Arts, University of São Paulo. She is a Brazilian nomadic multi-artist who works as an XR and new media arts creative director. She holds a PhD in audiovisual arts poetics and post-PhD research in performing arts and technology, both at the University of São Paulo. Please, Carolina.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
So, good afternoon. I'm really glad to be here. First, I'll describe myself. I am a woman with a brown skin, artificial blonde hair, wearing a gamer headphone, and gold rimmed glasses, and a safari style beige shirt. And I'm in a small cabin at the Co-work and Impact Hub, which is located in one of the largest innovation hubs in Latin America, that is called ACATI, Catarinense Technology Association in Florianópolis, Brazil. In this ecosystem, I'm glad to be here with you, distinguished authors, editors, and audience. And I'm honored to present the article Digital Self-Presence Lab, Embodying New Technologies for the Restoration of Presence. This article represents the main scientific result of a lifelong research that is the basis for my main project today as a new media and extended reality creative director, researcher, and performance. Lab Presenza is a creative study studio dedicated to immersive media with expertise in restoring presence. So the article presents the process of designing this life goal that is part of my creative flow with new media and human to digital interfaces carried out in practice-based research with a postdoctoral conclusion. It is inspired by the poetics of filmmakers, dancers, choreographers, DJs, and creative technologies who use media and new technologies to express themselves, questioning how devices and digital culture is being used to manipulate our consciousness. These practitioners of self-expression and scientific references from fields of performance studies, dance, cinema, and philosophy are the source where I found presence as an antidote for the informational overload we are living. So the practice-based methods of the research exposed in this article explore principles and presence modality through the combination of real and synthetic performances. With these methods, I found the presence paradox. We are connected without connection to what is presence. From this paradox, I found a double dissociation in presence. Lack of alignment between thoughts and actions, and the excess of imagination or beliefs over consciousness. This dissociation keeps us from finding causes and consequences of our behavior. Our bodies become stale and our thoughts lose sensitivity, flow, and connection to what is physically present. So my intention in this article is to bring the process of my research aiming to solve the presence paradox. And I established the restoration of presence as the central axis for the experiences conceived with creative technologies. I argue that it's time to address extended reality technologies as powerful means to enhance consciousness because they can produce presence. Since we are already having systems and creative technologies that know how to merge our body into virtuality with the expressive power of presence. So it's still time to reach the self for these human to digital interfaces systems that merge us into synthetic realities. It's possible to perceive ourselves while sensing and expressing interfaced presence. And that's the core solution to presence paradox. Otherwise, we will be lost into virtuality. So I finished my presentation here with a video that I sent to Renata, and that expresses my digital self today, always present to embody new technology and to solve the presence paradox. Thank you very much.
I dance with machines. I dance into coves. I dance for the ocean. I dance painting bones. I dance in lost places. I dance on the road. I dance contemplating. I dance all alone. I dance where I dare to seek my ancient and timeless soul. And since dancing became the sense of my life, from my wild nature to my digital self, I am never lost. I am always in the flow.
Thank you very much, Carolina, for your participation. I would like to mention the authors who could not attend our event today. Ana Viseu was interviewed by me in our book in a chapter called How to Be a Woman in Science, an interview with Dr. Ana Viseu by Renata Frade about feminism, gender, and technoscience perspectives. Ana Viseu was an assistant professor in the Department of Communication Studies at York University, Canada. In 2013, she returned to her home country, Portugal, to become a Marie Curie Fellow. In 2019, she was honored as one of Portugal's 100 female scientists, and she received her doctorate in 2005 from the University of Toronto. Thank you very much, Ana. I would like to mention also Dr. Dora Kaufman, who is the author of Gender Discrimination in AI Models, Origins and Mitigation Paths. She is professor at Pontifícia Universidade Católica de São Paulo, in Brazil. She, in AI Ethics, PhD in Communication Science at São Paulo University, with internship program at Université Paris-Sorbonne, postdoctorate at Production Engineering Program, COP, Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, and postdoctorate at TID, PUC São Paulo. She's also columnist at Época Negócios magazine and author of 2 books, Does Artificial Intelligence Surpass Human Intelligence and Demystifying Artificial Intelligence. And last, Dr. Sai Shruti Shivukla, author of Cultural Diversity as a Design Precedent, A Feminist Angle to HCI Expansion. She is assistant professor at Bloomington University in the United States, and I'm not finding the other information about her biography, but she is a professor there and an Indian person too, and she developing a work where she discusses cultural history, knowledge, interactions, and roots of researchers and designers as a design precedent. She talks through the concept as she presents various case studies in this work where researchers have built their research agenda by heavily drawing on their various cultural backgrounds. It's a pity she could not attend, but I invite you to read these amazing works in our book. Now, as we are running out of time, I would like to open the debate to the public and invite our authors to join us here. And does anybody want to question? Oh? Okay. Dr. Judy Walkman, I have a question for you. A person in the audience who is watching us in YouTube sent a question. Are you available to answer it?
Yes.
Okay. Just a minute, please. It's a PhD candidate at the Faculty of Engineering at the University of Porto. She says, I would like to ask Dr. Judy Walkman for her perspective on the barriers that female researchers face when seeking resources and funding for multi-transdisciplinary research, especially in fields of study where there's a male dominance. How can research and education institutions, as well as individuals within them, engage in creating mechanisms of financing support and a support network for women, particularly those from marginalized groups, to access funding and a safe environment to develop their research?
I mean, a part of me feels like this is a, can you hear me properly? Yes?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, part of this actually kind of isn't difficult. I mean, I must say that I'm very heartened by various experiments. And here, I mean, I'm afraid, two of the examples are American colleges, but, where the head of a college is very keen to have an equal number of women in, say, computer science, it's actually very easy to do. And, one of the things is to talk about, someone was telling me the other day that somewhere they just introduced subjects on the environment and made the engineering course much more about social issues and the environment, and suddenly the enrollment of women went up. That there are lots of experiments around the world where there are very successful, easy ways of equalizing the number of kind of women in STEM subjects. I mean, I agree with you. Once you get in there, there's the whole issue about getting funding and promotion and things like that. But again, I'd say in most of the institutions, I know in Britain now, there are women's networks in a lot of places. There are a lot of mentoring systems that have been put in place. I mean, none of it's new, actually. We've been talking about these things for a very, very long time. I guess the main thing I'd say is to really have a strong, deep commitment from leadership. Actually all of the people underneath look up and see whether the leader is taking it seriously, diversity, or whether, at the Turing Institute, we have an equality and diversity group, but actually the person who leads it all the time is the most senior person at Turing, who just makes it clear that he thinks this is important, that this is serious, that he sits on this committee. And that sends a message through the whole organization that this isn't an afterthought, but is central to the work we do. So I would say things like that are really crucial, actually, having leadership at the top committed to making change. And then actually it's not very difficult,
Thank you, Dr. Judy Walkman. Does anybody have any question to our authors? If not, yes. The microphone. But you can say in Portuguese, but if you feel more comfortable. Yeah, but I think she's not comfortable. Igual, so in English, please.
First of all, thank you for your presentations and your talks. My question is regarding what Dr. Anna talked about. You said that the path to achieve a higher ranking, like a CEO in STEM, is a lonely path. Do you think if more women would achieve that kind of position, it would be less lonely because you would have someone to share your experience and all the difficulties you have to achieve that kind of position?
Thank you for your question. I will give an answer, but I will mention that what I'm going to say is not a certainty. Like this and try to talk higher. It's not a certainty, it's a hypothesis. So, as I said, leadership per se is always a lonely place to be, period. Either you be a woman or a man, it's lonely. The power has that kind of attribute. Naturally, if you have even been lonely, if you have people with similar experience, and that comes as an empirical observation, you will diminish the loneliness that you are feeling. So I think it's highly likely, hypothetically true, that if there were more women in CEO position in STEM-related industries, and they could share among them a little support, their stories, they could feel less lonely. But that remains to be seen because we don't have that type of numbers. I think it would be likely, and would be likely because, in a way, that's what men do. Men share among them their stories, their past, that inspire mutually, and also help them. We are a social species. So that's how we interact and diminish our loneliness. So I think it would be likely that would happen if you had that kind of numbers in women in CEO positions.
Liliana, let me give you the microphone so people can hear you.
And straightforward, as women, in your perspective as well, how can we minimize this gap when we are in technology professions? We know that we have to work in a multidisciplinary context. The work is much diversified, and also we have different ways of thinking. When we have a project, we tend to think as a whole, and I don't know, but my experience working with men, it's better to think in the box, and much of the work, the holistic approach is left to women, and then there are some of the tasks like programming that we have to shift the thinking to a modular approach. And sometimes this is not easy because we have to manage many things. So how can we deal with that? Working in teams, how can we inspire female to attract for these careers? And thank you for your presentations and congratulations for your book.
Thank you, Liliana. Now the guy who thinks inside the box, I give him the microphone to someone who wants to answer.
I couldn't. We couldn't.
Okay, can I speak in Portuguese? Because my English is bad, so I prefer to speak in English, in Portuguese. Yes, it's a kind of inclusion, I think. Muito obrigada pela sua questão. Especificamente na indústria dos jogos digitais e nessa área, o que eu e a Patrícia estamos a verificar através dos nossos estudos é que é preciso haver, primeiro, transparência na forma de recrutamento nas empresas de jogos digitais. Não há essa transparência. Não há uma, infelizmente aqui em Portugal, e eu falo do contexto português, não há uma política efetiva de inclusão de mulheres nessa área. Outro aspecto é que no campo dos jogos digitais não é abordado pode ser. I don't know. Posso? Medai? Não. Pode ser um problema, né, gente? Não? É? É? Ok. Ok. So, como eu estava falando, no caso dos campos dos jogos digitais, há uma dificuldade em abordar esse campo como multidisciplinar. É uma área que, infelizmente, os vários cursos de videojogos ainda focam muito na programação dos jogos. E a programação em si, o termo programação, afasta as raparigas desse campo. Depois, a própria forma como esses cursos estão a fazer a publicidade, a chamar os seus alunos. Há muitas imagens de homens, se vocês perceberem, seja aqui na Universidade de Aveiro, e peço desculpa, mas é verdade, agora que está a começar a mudar, mas em outras instituições, quando fazem a divulgação dos cursos, abordam muito mais um campo, uma área masculina do que feminina. Além disso, eu acho que as pessoas ainda pensam que as mulheres não estão interessadas nas tecnologias, e isso foi dito por 26 mulheres que nós entrevistamos, ou a maioria delas. Portanto, elas sim são interessadas por tecnologias, e temos que parar de pensar que é natural a mulher não ir para as áreas de tecnologias simplesmente porque elas não estão interessadas. Isso não é verdade. Pronto, eu acho que tem que passar principalmente por esses dois aspectos, seja a publicidade, a transparência na contratação, a forma como divulgam as funções nas empresas, algumas palavras, alguns termos, nós temos que ter cuidados, porque isso realmente afastam as mulheres dessas áreas. Doutora Ana.
I will try to be brief. I think it starts with passion. You have to really like science, technology, math, engineering, and that is the beginning. The fact that women tend to be more multitasking, I see as an advantage. You are bringing something new to the industry to open, and you have to defend that aspect. You don't have to look to yourself as a handicap. You have to look to your difference as an advantage and act as such. And I return to passion. In Latin, the word passion and the word patience have the same root. You build your work, you build your career, you build your path, you will reach it. It takes time, but you will reach it.
I want to come to the cocktails.
Me too.
Okay. That's it?
Okay, thank you. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Everyone, bye-bye.
Bye.